Welcome to the clinical cookout. You know you need it, it's kinda scary, but mental health is necessary. Four educated queens taking the lead, hold their hands and they'll help you succeed. Lay your head back, relax, just like that. Now listen to, learn, and your problems will burn away. Cookout, you know, we got just what you need. At the cookout, your heart and mind we will be. At the cookout.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. We are qualified clinicians who will cover various topics on mental health and will sometimes provide community resources. We are not being paid by any organization for our content, and any information we provide is general and pertains to our own personal experiences. We do not provide psychotherapy, diagnoses, or treatment recommendations on air. Any concerns related to your individual mental health should be directed to your medical and mental health professionals. We are not responsible for others' decisions or the subsequent consequences.
Welcome back to the Clinical Cookout. It's time for our hot sauce, and it is hot. Our hot sauce is when we talk about trending topics and we relate them to mental health. Let's get it. Today, our hot sauce is going to be especially hot because we want to know, how do you function in a group of people who don't like you? Can you be authentic in that group of people who don't like you? What if you have a friend who has a bunch of friends who don't like you? What does that look like?
I'll be completely honest, y'all. Completely honest. I have been around people who do not like me for the last 10, 15 years. And I'll just be around them. We don't speak to each other. I don't talk to them. I'm going to be who I am and I'm going to say what I want to say. And I'm going to hang out with my girlfriend. I've done it for years in 2 different groups too. I don't know why these people don't speak to me. They never have. They'll speak to everybody else in the room. They'll conversate with everybody else in the room, but they'll skip over me. And it is what it is. As long as I'm not being disrespectful to my friend, as long as I'm not flipping tables or tearing up my friend's home, then I feel like it's all good. I can be my authentic self around people who don't like me. And honestly, I'd rather that person know, okay, if you're not going to speak, I'm not going to be fake to you. I'm not going to go out of my way to talk to you if that's not what you want to do. Good. You've let me know that you don't mess with me, and that's okay. That's okay. I'd rather that person do that than to try to smile or try to say hi to me and they really don't mean that or not interested in getting to know me. So I've done it and I'm not bothered by it. Not at all. They can kiss my ass still.
I was waiting for it to get to that point.
I don't do it.
I can't. I used to. And this is how you know when you have moved and grown in life from being that inauthentic person trying to find yourself and figure out who you are to somebody older that's like, I have 0 fucks to give. I can't do it. I can't. I can be in the situation and I can be my authentic self, but because I don't like the vibe in those situations, I don't want to be in them. So you can have people in your life that we don't get along and you are our mutual friend, but we also don't have to all be together in no group because I need a certain vibe and I just have to have it that way at this point. I don't want no awkwardness, we don't speak to each other, so we just walking past each other and this energy, because the energy is there regardless. It's there. Yeah. The energy is, and that's my thing. I'm in a place now where I don't want that type of energy. So I just won't I'm like, go hang out with them. You good? We can hang out another time, or we can hang out with a set of friends that we're all good with. I don't need to be around nobody I don't like or that don't like me.
What I've experienced is, I feel like that too. What I experience is the person that's like the friend, right? They're like that main friend. And they're hanging around with a bunch of people that don't like you. They try to please. And so they don't want you to feel awkward. And then they don't want that. But then again, they don't want the other friends to feel awkward. But then they got to show like, we're having fun, aren't we? Oh, this is so much fun, aren't we? You can smile. Even though you guys don't like each other, you guys are all here for me. Aren't we having fun? Look at this. This is fun. And to me, it's not fun. So I go where the vibes are. If the vibe is great and it makes me feel good, then I'm there. Like, if I'm going to be, first of all, I don't travel with a bunch of people who don't like me. That's how people get dead. That's why we look on these trips. And I'm for real. And
that's how people get dead.
That's how they get dead. You look on these trips and you're like, no wonder why she didn't come home. She was with a bunch of people who hated her. Why would she go? That's the first question people ask. Well, why would you go if you knew you was with a whole bunch of people who didn't like you? Because people are snaky, and I can't be bothered with it. And I think when it doesn't feel good to me, when my innards don't feel right, I cannot vibe like that. And I would rather honestly be alone than be around a whole bunch of people with fake energy and fake love. I don't do it. And then because it makes me aggressive. That's another thing. It makes me feel aggressive, or it makes me shrink. And I can't be myself. If I can't laugh, clown, I always got to think about what was said. Are they gonna turn it around? I don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't do it.
Well, I cannot be my authentic self in those situations. So I love how y'all are to the point where you can be your authentic selves no matter what situation you're in or who you're around. I'm not there yet. So I would either not be in this situation. So the only way I would put myself in that situation is if it's to celebrate a special occasion for my friend. Like if it's their birthday or they're getting married or they're having a baby. I'm not coming to no kickback with you and your friend because I'm gonna be in there trying to be somebody I'm not to like make the situation better instead of just being me and just like going with it. I'm all in my head. I have anxiety. Y'all all know this. So all I can think about is, oh, am I being awkward? Am I being weird? Like, should I laugh at that? Or so it's just too much. Like it's what's the word? Incongruent for me. Because I'm putting on a front to look like I'm cool, right? And like I'm chill. I don't fuck with none of y'all, but I'm gonna act like I'm chill, right? It's being fake, and I can't do that. So I just will not go to anything like that unless I absolutely feel like I have to.
That's so crazy coming from y'all. Like I really thought that y'all would be like,
I can't do it. That's
Listen,
I'm the only auntie who can do it. I will jump in the ring of fire, y'all. Like I'll be like, y'all remember the quote from Basketball Wives where it said you a non-mother factor? That's how I think. I'm like, you a non-mother. This is my world. Like you just living in it. You just passing by. Like people are non-factors to me, and I just jump right in head first. Like I don't care. I'm not here for you.
do it. I can do it if like Amber said, it is certain situations where I'm not gonna miss my friend's wedding or something like that.
Right.
So I can do it. I prefer not to because of the energy. And I think people really think. I love that Shug said the mutual friend, the person that's in between, always is trying to please both sides. I've been in a situation where that happened, and I told my friend, I don't like her anymore. I'm not gonna talk to her. Like she could be there. I ain't saying nothing. And she didn't believe me. And we got there to her house and I sat there and she nudged me like, come on, don't be like that. I was like, I already told you I wasn't saying nothing to her. And I was talking literally around her. Like we were in a group having conversation, laughing, joking, and I was acting like she literally was not there. She was invisible to me.
And
I
see, to
would
me,
say
why,
the
why
same
even
thing.
do it? Like, why even take all that into somebody's space? I will remove myself. I don't want to take you away from all your little friends you like. Okay. I'll remove myself. And then me and you could vibe whenever we could vibe together. Because if I don't like your vibe when you're around all these people and I'm looking at you funny. And I have a hard time with trust already. And when my trust has been broken over and over and over, and I can't trust people that I'm with, I can't do you because it's not for me.
I will say I have been the friend who has had like to maneuver around friends that didn't like each other. Now I was put in that space, and that is a hard space to navigate. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's really hard when two friends don't like each other and you're the person that's trying to make sure everything's okay. So I have been in that, and I don't like that. Now that part doesn't make me that makes me feel uncomfortable. But as far as me like jumping in and somebody else don't like me or don't speak to me, I just be like, all right, like that's your problem, like not mine. I'm good.
And
If
see,
we've never had a conversation, if I've never had a conversation with you and you choose and go out of your way not to speak to me, then that's clearly your stuff. I don't take on that stuff because I'm like, I know you, but if you don't speak to me because you got a problem and you haven't addressed me with the problem, then it doesn't bother me because you got to handle that on your own. That's how I be looking.
yeah,
One person being like, oh, her friend doesn't like me. But I'm gonna go in a group of people who don't like me because I love you.
No, not a group.
Why would I
not a
do
group.
that?
Yeah, a group is and
Not
see
a group.
a group would have me thinking, and I know that we should get past that level and be more mature. But at the end of the day, you are our mutual friend. This whole group that you like doesn't like me. So now I'm wondering, how do you show up when I'm not there? How are you showing up when I'm not there? Because it's got to be some type of discrepancy. Are you which authentic self is your authentic self? The one with me or the one with them? That's what I'll start thinking.
Yeah. Or if it's a bunch of messy people and I know they talking about me, I know they talk about me, how do you show up for me? Because if I can't trust you to show up in the room when I'm not there, then I don't need you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I be having a whole bunch of head movies going on. Some of it's my stuff. Some of it
Nobody should ever feel comfortable enough around somebody I consider a friend to say something about me. You shouldn't even feel that comfortable. They should have already established a boundary. Look, I know y'all don't get along. Do not talk to me about her. Don't say nothing to me about her. Y'all situation ain't my situation. You got a problem with her, go talk to her about it. But you will not bring that to me. If you haven't done that and they feel comfortable enough to bring me up, that's a problem.
No, you can't even say that because you can set boundaries all you want, and there are people that are just going to cross them no matter what. So, and I like, so with this, we have two different sides. It's the person having to go into the room with people that, you're not really messing with, they're not really feeling you, and having to be your authentic self. And then it's the person who's in the middle of those friends having to be their authentic self. So we've said authentic self like 50 times in this hot sauce. So in the main dish, let us go ahead and start talking about what exactly is authentic self and some of our perceptions or our journeys to finding our authentic selves.
We are back for the main dish, and we are talking all things authenticity today. So if you saw the hot sauce, we had a question that really spoke to, can you show up authentically, or how do you show up? So my question to y'all, to kind of just open this up, have you always been authentic? Have you since as long as you can remember, however far back you can go, have you always shown up as your authentic self? Or can you be transparent and honest and say, no, in every situation, all the time, I have not?
First, what does that mean?
Showing up authentically?
Yes.
Okay. So showing up authentically means there is a congruency between what you think and how you behave. What you think and what you feel shows up. It's congruent across the board. So you're not showing up as anyone other than who you truly are. It's a realness to it. So that congruency is, I think a thing, I know how to relay that thing. I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not trying to wear a mask. If I'm not happy, I'm able to say I'm not happy. I'm not going to front like I am happy. If I have an issue, I'm not going to pretend I don't have an issue. If I feel a type of way, I'm going to convey those feelings instead of kind of mask them. So being authentic is all about the congruency between what you think, feel, and do. So do y'all always feel that way?
I've not always showed up that way. So I think when I was younger, right? I had a lot of social anxiety. I still have social anxiety sometimes. And not all the time, because a lot of times I'm masked, like I mask it with humor, or I come out and it's really the real me, like that humor side and everything like that. But that's the face that I put on so that I can get along in other settings, especially when I feel uncomfortable. So I would still be my authentic self, but a different version of my authentic self. So I think as I grew older, I started marrying the two, to whereas I can have a professional side. I can be this person, I can be this guru, but at the same time, I am silly. I am a clown. I can be myself. And I just had to marry those two together. So now I try to show up as authentically me. And if it's a situation where I can't be me, I don't go into it.
I have not mastered the art of authenticity yet in my life. So it is okay for you guys out there, the ones who have not yet mastered this. I think I have mastered it in certain settings. So when I'm at home, of course, I'm my authentic self with my family. When I'm with, certain groups of friends, I have mastered that. I can just be me without any fear. But when I'm not my authentic self, there's always some kind of fear or anxiety associated with it. So it depends on the setting. And I haven't yet worked through, I'm working through that now through therapy, but I haven't yet worked through that because I have to figure out why. And I think a lot of that has to do with my childhood, not necessarily bad things, but just the way that I learned how to like put a mask on throughout my childhood and present as this perfect kid and perfect teen or whatever. So learning how to kind of break that down and just be who I truly am, no matter where I'm at, I'm still working on that. So
I would say I have not always mastered being my authentic self, but I have now. I feel like I'm in my zone. I feel like who I am today is really who I am. And I have been in situations where I have not always been able to show up who I am, but who I want to be. But now I show up and I always have to, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I always have to bend the rule so it would fit me. But I do it in a way that is digestible for everybody, but also making sure that it's digestible for me as well. So I'm changing roles at my job, for instance, and I was told that it's a little stale and that everybody all looks the same and they all do the same thing. And here I am showing up where they've only had maybe two black trainers within the past 10 years. So I have a really big personality and everybody's all professional, everybody's all, straightforward. And I'm like, please, we not about to do that over here. So when I did my introduction, I bent it a little bit so I can make people laugh because I like being funny. So, I fit in the conversation the way I wanted to fit in the conversation. And so it doesn't mean you don't have to be professional. It just means that I bend the rules to make it work for me.
Well, I know full well I haven't always shown up authentically. It's been a difficult journey for me. And a lot of that had to do with, like Auntie Amber said, perfectionism, that desire to be perfect or that feeling that I had to be. And then the other side of it for me, especially growing up, was I wanted everybody to like me. So I was going to show up as what you needed me to be versus what I wanted and needed to be for myself. So I would show up for friends and other people the way they needed me to be, which was often not who I really was. It was like this fear they won't like who I really am. And me personally also dealing with a very harsh inner critic, I would be hypercritical of myself. Like I need to be this way so that they'll like me. I have to make sure, I have to act like I like this or do this. And even still, that comes up. I think what people don't realize is along the journey of authenticity, those situations will still come up where you slip back and it's like, I don't feel like I can be me in this space. I got to show up a certain way so that they'll accept me. And for a lot of people, acceptance is more important than authenticity. And that's where I have come to test myself daily. Like, do I want to be accepted here? And is that why I'm not being authentic? Or does that acceptance really matter? But something else that came up as y'all all were talking was the idea of putting on a mask in certain settings. Putting on a mask in certain settings is not actually negative all the time. We all have what we call personas, which is a Carl Jung model or way of thinking. He created these archetypes. So the persona is the mask you put on for social settings. You are not going to be the same person at work that you are with your girlfriends at a strip club, and you're not going to be the same person in that situation that you are with your kids or with your parents. You are going to have different parts of you. So it's not so much that wearing the mask is wrong, but wearing the mask can be difficult and exhausting if you are doing it in spaces where you should be allowed to be who you are. Like if you around your friends or family and you feel like you got to wear a mask, that's a problem, because why do you feel that way?
I think that when you're talking about that type of mask, you're talking more about like behaviors, like what you do. You show up doing different things in different settings. But when we talk authenticity or your authentic self, this goes deeper than just what you're doing on the surface. It's
Mhm.
like how you think about the world, how you think about other people, it's your values, different things like that. That stuff doesn't change between settings. And so I struggle with keeping that consistent between settings. Kind of like you were saying, Auntie Ashley, like you trying to like present in a certain way when you're in certain settings with people. For me, it's like, okay, if I'm in a setting where all of these people are talking about how much they value like whatever it is. Sometimes I kind of go with like, okay, well, I value that too. Even though it might not be really a value, it's kind of like I'm conforming in the moment, and that's not my authentic self. And I usually do that because maybe I fear that if I don't agree or conform, they're not going to want to be around me, or I'm going to, be the oddball out. So, does does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like you become a chameleon. You blend in where you are. You try to blend in where you are instead of standing fast to who you are. And that's actually a little different. It does go deeper than just the behaviors. But like if I use Auntie Keisha's example, she's in this new position and it's real like straight laced. They were very professional, and that's just not her. So even her behaviors, if she starts to be a chameleon and conform to that, it will start to affect her. She's going into work every day, be it trying to be this straight laced professional. Okay, we just gonna keep it cut and dry, black and white, but that's not who she is. So she's conforming more than just her behaviors in that case, and it's gonna start to be exhausting.
But you can conform professionalism with your authentic self. I do it every single day. I'm still a clown, and then I think I find spaces to exist in when I'm at work. Like I just started a new position in June. And at first it was weird. I was anxious every single day because not being your authentic self or feeling like you can't be your authentic self does breed a lot of anxiety. And then it didn't breed depression, but it was I didn't enjoy going to work at first because it was like I don't know these people. What can I say? Will they look at me different? Because I think my stuff and it's old stuff is I've always been a little bit more of an out of the box thinker. So everybody else was trying to conform, and I was always like, well, I don't think like that. And then I was more vocal to whereas I would say, and I don't like that. I don't think like that. And then so then I felt like I wasn't accepted. So I learned not to go in those spaces at all. To whereas it's like, well, if they don't accept me, I'm not going in those spaces at all. So fast forward, I was going to work every single day and not feeling like I wasn't accepted, but still feeling like if I show them that I don't agree with certain things, or if I show them to have a different thought process, will they accept me? Because mine is never if you'll like me. I don't care. It's if will they accept my opinions? And so what I've become is a watcher. Let me watch everybody else's behaviors, watch how everybody is. And if I see a little bit of clown in you, I know that when I say something, I'm going to throw the line out there and I might be able to reel you back in. And then I figured out, like, with me actually letting myself out little by little, other people are doing the same thing. Other people are still like, can I be myself? And so everybody's deeply insecure. So whenever you put yourself out there, then people put themselves out there. And now we're in a space to where we professional, we gonna have this staffing, but guess what? It's gonna be some clowning in the staffing. And now we gotta reel it back in. And I'm still being my authentic self. I'm just authentic professional. Shit, people be funny.
And see that acceptance though, because that's another word that's coming up a lot. And I said a little earlier, some people value acceptance more than they do their authenticity. the so I've come to a place where I realize, especially in this world, that everybody won't accept you. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how funny you are. Everybody won't accept you. It's not a matter of liking you, but everybody won't accept you. My thing is, I think I've come to a place now where you don't have to accept me. I just desire that you be respectful to me. Don't disrespect me because you don't accept who I am as my authentic self. And I see that a lot of times for us in particular, we are four Black women here. So culturally speaking, how does authenticity come into play if we want to kind of guide over into that area? Because I think for us, especially speaking about being at work and being in these settings that are predominantly white, because regardless, the mental health field is still predominantly white. How does that affect us culturally? How does that
I think
affect
that
authenticity?
I think that's a good question, and I think Auntie Shug says something really key for me. Observing. I think a lot of people don't tend necessarily observe and take the temperature of where they're at. And I think that is key in how you show up and what you can do and how you can bend the rules. So culturally, when we talk about what is something that we would do and talk about like amongst us as Black professionals versus probably what we wouldn't talk about with white professionals or professionals who are just not Black. And I tested the waters the other day in my staff meeting or in my treatment team meeting. I had this client, some things was going on, and I said something about pulling off my wig. Now remind you, I would probably in another world, somebody else would be like, you said that? Like you told these group full of white people about pulling off your wig? And I just like I tested the water, like, okay, like I'm going in and I'm gonna say that. Now it might be funny to us, but to them, they're like, "Oh my God, she's talking about wearing a wig." And I'm just like, "Okay, we can laugh," but I laughed about it. That way they could laugh about it, and we can just move on. It was just something funny I wanted to say because I didn't want the client to pull my wig off. I really didn't. So I said it. So, so I mean, I just thought I'd throw that out there, but I wanted to test the waters because they're typically very straight, very reflective group, not a very, I mean, yes, there might be little things, but I needed to like break the ice to let them know who I was, who I am, and how I'm gonna show up at treatment team. And so I think that culturally, I think that sometimes I really hate to say this, but sometimes as us people, we tend to swallow what we think is appropriate because we want to please them versus showing up as to who we are and how we can still get the job done. And I think that sometimes people confuse, well, if I show up this way, those people aren't going to think I can get the job done when those two have no correlation. They have no correlation. I can still get the job done and be my authentic self. I can still get the job done and say things that may be different from you culturally, but yet I can still speak in a professional manner or write my notes or documentation or anything like that that you've asked me to do. I still hit all my job duties. So I think that sometimes when we have individuals who are just different from us, it doesn't even have to be culturally, just different in general, we automatically put them in a position that they have some sort of deficit, which is not true. That's just not true. They don't have a deficit. And I think that because the standard has always been there, anytime we bend the rules, it's now, oh, they're other. No, I'm just different. We can reach the same goal, maybe in different ways. And when showing up your authentic self, that may look different for me than it's going to look different for my white counterparts. It just is. Yes, I'm sure a white lady isn't going to be talking about how a client can pull off her wig. I'm sure she's not. But I am because I think it's funny and it's a reality for me. Our authentic selves, to me, as a Black woman, is related to our culture, our cultural selves. I think there's a big tie to that, and people try to separate it. And to me, I'm trying to put the two together so that way people know who are not of color that this is who I am professionally and culturally, and both can exist at the same time.
Yes. Yes, Keish. Oh my God. And that's a big thing for me. Culturally speaking, our authentic selves are going to be different. And again, I think we always reiterate when we talk about things like this that even all Black people are not a monolith. We're not all the same. But I shouldn't have to downplay cultural parts of myself, cultural aspects of myself to meet some standard that has nothing to do with my culture anyway. We have to remember who creates the standards. Who created the standards? Who created the standard of professionalism? Who created the standard of this or the standard of beauty or the standard of that? Like, if we look at it that way, I don't think you can truly be authentic if you are always trying to fit into the standard, because the standard wasn't even made for you. So the idea of us being in these spaces where we are one of the only or a few makes authenticity harder, but it allows for us to show them, yeah, we can still do the job being our authentic self. I don't have to code switch to get you to understand what I'm saying. Because even that, for me, even that is being inauthentic. If I cannot just talk the way that I talk and you understand it, like I shouldn't have to do that because the words I'm saying are not that difficult to understand or that different. But we do because of the standards that society has put in place that never really were meant for us in the first place. They were meant for us to assimilate and to conform, but they weren't meant for who we truly are.
See, some of that is loaded, because I think sometimes when we say the standards and some of this stuff wasn't meant for us, none of it was meant for us really, because we came from somewhere else and we were dragged over here, and there's a whole thing of slavery, so we don't really know what's meant for us. So what we've done was we defined what was meant for us, but by whose definition, right? Even in the Black community, whose definition says that's not who we are, we shouldn't be conforming, and then this is who we are, we should be conforming. Why do you have to conform to Blackness or whiteness? Why can't you just show up and be who you are? So my core values are core values, right? I don't like being late to everything. But then you get some Black people who will say, oh, that's what we do, you should already expect that. I don't like that. Why do I have to fit in that mold? And then you get some people who want you to say, your hair is not professional unless it's straight. Why do I have to fit in that mold? So why can't I not straddle the line, but why can't I show up as an individual and not as a Black person or a white person? Like, why can't I just be myself? Obviously, I'm showing up Black because I'm Black all day, every day. But at the same time, who defined the lack of standards, or who defined the standards? Like, where does all of this come from? Who said that you're inauthentic if you are speaking proper? Who said that you're inauthentic? Like, if you go in the courtroom, you can't go in there speaking a whole bunch of slang. I'm saying that because I got a deposition coming up, and I have to conform to some kind of standards. I gotta be somebody who I'm not. I talk like this most of the time. I gotta go in there and act like I got some sense. So who says that if I do that, then I'm not being my authentic self? That's the problem that I have with sometimes being like, we showing up as our culture. I'm still in my culture, going up in there talking the way I'm talking, being who I am.
But see, that's the other question. Who said that if you, because the way you were just talking, which right now we all talking the way we normally talk, you are perfectly understandable. You're not saying nothing crazy. You're not using a ton of slang, because who said that slang is our culture? It's not. But it's a difference between, like, for instance, me and Ashley Green, our friend, has been on the show before as a guest. She naturally speaks proper. Naturally. Like, naturally,
Yeah.
that is how that girl talks. It wasn't something that was learned. That's just how she speaks. So when she speaks that way, that's authentic. But for me, I don't naturally speak that way. So if I do anything outside of how I naturally speak, I am conforming or trying to present a certain way. And I can do that. Like, I just don't, I think I struggle with this idea that if you are not this thing, this way, if you don't do it this way, it's not acceptable. And
Right.
this way is not always authentically who I would show up as. But that does not take away the fact that I'm intelligent, you can get the point, and we can keep it moving.
Yeah. So I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's nothing to oppose here. And we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, we don't, because if you say Ashley's a Black woman, and Ashley can get Ashley. Let's just say that. So
True,
if we were to say she's not being our authentic self whenever she's going to work like that, we'll be wrong, because she's still a Black woman and she's still showing up like that. But in our culture, a lot of times when we do get with our friends, we are speaking slang. Be real. We are talking. We talking. Snatching your wig off. That's AAVE. We understand that. That's just a different. That's a different level of slang. She can say that at work, and it's not unprofessional. Just the way other people can talk the way they talk at work, and it's unprofessional. So what I'm trying to do is break these boundaries of, if I'm going in there and I'm in my culture, then I'm not being unprofessional. I got to assimilate to whiteness. I don't think we always assimilate into whiteness. I think that we're assimilating to the way that the world works. Like, I don't think does that make sense? That's what I'm saying. We're saying the
It does
same.
make sense. We just can't ignore the fact that the way that the world works is under a structure of whiteness. We can't ignore that.
I'm sorry, but we're talking a whole lot about the world and social influences, and I get that social influences impact our authentic selves in some way. It feeds into it. But when we're talking authentic self, we're talking about the individual, like Auntie Shug was saying.
Yeah.
Despite the social influences, despite the different setting that you're in, you have an authentic, true self within you. And that does not change. It doesn't change whether you're in a professional setting. Like I said, the behaviors may change. You may speak a little bit differently, but the values and your trait, like your personality traits, your character, that stuff doesn't change. So when we're talking authentic self, like, yes, there are certain behaviors that may switch, but I just want to make it clear that the core does not change.
Yes, your core
So
values.
the core values. So like, I don't even know, like, for example, if we're talking about the way that you speak in certain settings or whatever, right? If you talk in slang when you're talking to your friends or hanging out, and then you shift to a professional setting and you're speaking more professionally, like using different vocabulary, the core here is that you like to communicate effectively no matter where you're at. That communication may change, the way that you speak may change in certain settings, but that core value, like, I like to make sure that people understand what I'm saying, I communicate effectively, that doesn't change. So that's part of your authentic self.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with y'all, but I'm also just saying that the outside world doesn't have a lot to, like, it feeds into it in terms of development, but once you get to that point, like, that doesn't matter. Like, you're just gonna be you, supposed to be you, wherever you go.
But can core values change though? Core values can change too. All the things that you mentioned in that are innate to who we are, like you're saying that part doesn't change. That's changed for me over time. Based off of the external stuff. Like growing up in the church, there were certain things I believed to my core until I started doing the work for myself. And that has
So
really changed.
I'm saying it doesn't change in the settings that, in different settings that you're in,
They're not
because that's your
situational.
authentic self right now.
Mhm.
Whoever you are authentically right now, those values are not going to change when you go to work, or
Mhm.
when you go hang out with friends, or when you go out to eat in a restaurant, or wherever you are. I'm saying it's not changing in the moment.
In the moment.
It can change over time. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But as far as what we're talking about, authenticity, you're not just going to change your values every time you walk into a different room.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to point out, when we go back to what Shook said, being observant, taking the temperature, we know you're not going to show up to court speaking a certain way. We know that. Why? Because you represent an entire agency, an entire company when you walk into a courtroom. That is
Yeah.
very different from walking in there thinking we're going to speak like how we speaking now. That's different. And I think that being observant, I think, is literally key. There's no way I would have said anything about snatching my wig off, because I like to be funny, because that's naturally my authentic self, if I didn't feel like that group would have been receptive to it.
Right.
I wouldn't have said that, because now I have to protect myself. But protecting yourself can also be like, you know what? I said this, they didn't be receptive of it. I know now this is not the group I can be my authentic self with.
Yeah.
I can be my authentic self over here, though, which I think what Amber is saying as well. Like, that's not going to change. It just depends on who and what groups you're in and what settings you're in. So I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
Like my authentic and your core values are not the core values. Do they change that much? If your core values changing that much, then because core values are those are the things that kind of were developed through your family, through the way you communicate, through the way you operate growing up, period. So those things, like being observant. One of my core values is, you know what, I can take on anything. So a part of taking on anything is looking around the room and being observant and then turning into a chameleon. So those core values, they're still the same. It's just that they're tweakable in situations. I tweak them as needed, but they're not just completely changing, because it's otherwise you incongruent. You're all over the place.
Some of them won't. Some of my core values have not changed. When I say that, you hit on why that is, because you said your core values come from your family and how you were raised. So a lot of times, as you are growing up, a lot of the things you believe, a lot of the core values you have were placed on you. Finding yourself means either I do align with that or maybe I don't, and I've just always been taught that and raised that way. Maybe that's really not my authentic self, but it is what I've been made to believe for so long. I don't know anything else. So when you get to experience the world and have life experience, that the certain core values can absolutely shift, and you realize, yeah, that's how I was raised, but that's not actually who I am when you start to really learn yourself.
You're talking about personal values. So the core values are the things that are just stuck. Like this certain set of values that was placed into me. Like being a good person, making sure that I take care of others as well as take care of myself. Those are core values. Personal values change. The things that you value personally, the way
Core
that you act.
beliefs or
Yeah,
beliefs change. Yeah.
yeah. Well, or personal values, like you know what I mean. Core beliefs, core values. Those are the things that are stuck. It is what it is. Personal stuff changes. So you might have been taught, you know what, take care of others before you take care of yourself. And that might be a value where I'm going to take care of other people, but at the same time, personally, you might be like, you know what, that's not serving me. So now I'm going to change the way I do that to whereas I'm still a person that values other people, but I'm putting myself in there too. So
Mm.
basically what I'm saying when I say core values are the things that are innate, the things that we are taught, the way that we grew up, the way that we experience the world is through our family first, and then we learn and adapt through school, and then over time we learn and adapt in the workplace. We are adapting adults. We are consistently and constantly evolving. So we discussed some personal values, we discussed your core values, and we discussed that everything is figure outable, everything is tweakable. You might have to tweak yourself. So let us give you some knowledge so that you can wrap it up and take it home with you. My foil, because this is the foil, right? You put your plate in your aluminum foil. That's what we're talking about. Okay. My foil is that if it doesn't serve you, then stay out of them situations. So at work is going to be different. You're going to have to be what you need to be in order to get your bag. Okay. Nobody's going to mess up their money for trying to be too real. Okay. So if you need to tailor yourself and the way that you behave in social settings, then you do that. Your core beliefs are still going to be the same, and you're still going to be the same human being, just in different settings, and that's okay. But if it doesn't serve you, then don't go into them spaces and let go of shit that's not working for you.
My foil is do some self discovery work. Figure out who you are. A lot of times we sit and we had these conversations about authenticity, and I truly do believe a lot of people are who they are based on other things. That is not truly who you are. So do some self-discovery work and figure out who you are, what serves you, like Auntie Shug said, and how to show up as your authentic self. Because at the end of the day, showing up with mask on all the time or conforming to certain things all the time and having those personas is exhausting. This is why we leave work tired a lot, because you're exhausted, because you've had to put on this persona all day and you're exhausted. So get into situations for the most part where you don't have to do that, and do some self-discovery work. Find out who you are now, because you change. So find out who you are now. Do some work. Go over your values. Do you have the same values? Do you have the same beliefs? At your core, is this really who you are? Find that out for yourself, and that will get you to a place where you can be more authentic.
I would say I'm a risk taker when it comes to being my authentic self. I'm always going to push the envelope and bend the rules to see how it best fit me. So my advice for those individuals who want to show up and be their authentic self and include their cultural background, I think it's important to allow others to see your cultural background. Like, it's okay to do that if it's not coming from a place that's harmful or not coming from a place that's disrespectful. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to understand. That's not the goal here. The goal here is to show up with yourself, your authentic self. And if there's some cultural components sprinkled in there, that's okay. It's definitely okay. Because listen, you worked your butt off to get where you are now anyway. So that doesn't mean you have to block out certain parts of yourself. That doesn't mean that. So I would say show up, take a risk, and bend the rules to how it fits you.
So this conversation is always hard for me because, as I stated earlier, I have not yet mastered authenticity. I haven't really, I'm still working on finding who I truly am, what my values are, and how to present that to the world, or even like for myself, just kind of taking that mask off. But the reason why I'm having a hard time with this is because um as a child, I felt like I always had to be perfect. I felt like I always had to put on this mask and please people and protect other people from like my own mistakes or my misbehavior, just different things like that. And so that is a huge part of why I'm struggling with it now. Even at almost 32 years old, I'm turning 32 this month, y'all. But even at almost 32 years old, I'm still struggling to kind of break that down and really find out who am I, because I'm not that perfect person. Nobody's perfect. And I can't be that. I can't be that all the time. It's exhausting. I just can't do it. Um, so I guess I'm saying all this to say that while your kids are little, while they're still developing who they are, developing their identity from childhood even into preteen, adolescence, just allowing them to be who they are and kind of fostering, development in different ways rather than what you think a child should be like. And I am not saying my parents did this to me, but I'm just saying, you think a kid is supposed to, sit down, shut up, listen, and do what you say. And if they go outside of that, it's a problem. You got to answer, they have questions and you're not answering questions or whatever that may be. Allowing your kid to grow into their own, providing them that space where they can be safe to do that at home. That way they feel safe to do that in other places as well. Or if they feel safe and confident at home and you're building that up for them, when they go into other spaces and somebody got something to say, they ain't gonna care because they already solid in it. You've already helped them become solid and strong in who they are and stable. So that's my foil. Now I'm going to take a nap because I've had a slight hangover this whole time. I love y'all. Thanks for your support. Y'all have a wonderful day, night. Goodbye.
You ain't gonna ask them what they about to do? You about to go take a nap.
And so I'm about to go take a nap. What y'all about to do?